Welcome to Glasgow and the 2017 Bank of Scotland Great Scottish Run. 30,000 people are taking part in a weekend full of activity featuring all ages and all abilities. And the half marathon in particular includes some top British and international names. This is a celebration of British and Scottish sport. Charlotte Purdue, leading European at the World Championship Marathon in August in London. Great run. So many injuries as a youngster.
Fourth place, representing Kenya, Flomena Daniel.
Well, Flomena Daniel just missed a medal in London, but she was Commonwealth champion over the marathon here 3 years ago. She's genuinely world class.
Bronze medalist and 2014 European 10,000 metre champion.
And lining up, the darling of British female distance running, Jo Pavey, 5 times an Olympian, a European 10,000 metre champion in her early 40s.
And 2016 Great South Run champion.
And then a fair array of talented men. Chris Thompson, the former European silver medalist over 10,000. Can he show his best? Is he free from the injuries that have dogged much of his career? We'll find out soon. Well, now to an interesting debutante, a brilliant 5,000 metre runner. He heralds from Dunblane. It's his first half marathon. He's a bit of a comedian. He's not short of a drop or two of confidence. Andrew Buttart, 6th in the Olympics last year. I wonder how he'll fare here over 13.1 miles. And what about the defending Great Scottish Run champion, Callum Hawkins? He's the best Scottish male distance runner for a generation. 4th at the World Championships. He just keeps getting better and better. The last few seconds tick down here. A race with great history, great prestige, and 2 quality elite fields assembled here once again. And the 2017 Bank of Scotland Great Scottish Run is underway. It's a fairly dreich day, as they say in Scotland. A little bit damp, it's a little fresh. Autumn has definitely started here in Scotland. But it's that old cliche, nothing will dampen the enthusiasm and the spirit of the thousands who are pouring onto the streets just behind the elites. And I spotted a kilt there. Everybody getting in the mood here in the early stages in Glasgow. Callum Hawkins, all in the black. Chris Thompson on the right of frame there. He's got the long calf socks. What a hill. Now, I'm assured it's not quite as ominous close up as it looks from that angle, but I'll certainly get the pulses racing right at the very start. Here's just a reminder of the precise route of this great half marathon. Starts in George Square, and then they snake their way across the Kingston Bridge. Considering it's an urban setting, we've got some beautiful countryside for the elites and the club runners and fun runners. First comes Pollock Park as they head up to and beyond the halfway stage. And then they make their way through Bella Houston Park. And at what stage will we see the drive for victory? Back across the Clyde Arc, locals know it as the Squinty Bridge because of the angle. And then that long run onto Glasgow Green and the relief of the finish line. That is the full circuit. So a fair number of inclines to contend with for the athletes. And there's Flomena Daniel, not quite as high profile as the likes of Edna Kiplagat, who, by the way, won this race in 2014, or perhaps a Mary Kaitani, one of the fastest marathon runners in history. But Flomena Daniel is world class, backing up that Commonwealth marathon victory here 3 years ago with a brilliant run for 4th at the London World Championships. So she's the clear early leader in the women's race. And now an interesting battle beginning to unfold. You've got Callum Hawkins, the defending champion. His fellow Scot, the Shettleston Harrier, Tsegai Tewelde, who stayed in Scotland, claiming asylum after representing Eritrea in the 2008 World Cross Country Championships. And then Chris Thompson, hanging on at the back of this group at the moment, these three with a clear gap over the rest. And maybe the question here is, has Callum Hawkins properly recovered from that 4th place finish at the World Championship in August in 2017? I guess the answers to those questions will be forthcoming. And still they pour across the start line back in George Square. There's Charlotte Purdue, maybe taking some inspiration from the bagpipes we can just hear in the background. A brilliant cross-country runner as a junior, then came years of injury. She really is finding her form here over the full marathon. And there's Jo Pavey just in the distance. Purdue's second, with Flomena Daniel further up the field in the lead. Very consistent over the marathon, Charlotte Purdue. She's gone 2:32, 2:30 and run 2:29 twice. It was an excellent run from her in London to finish as the top European. Well, how about this? Chris Thompson was at the back of that trio, and now alongside and just half a metre or so ahead of Callum Hawkins. Now, Hawkins would definitely be the favourite for this one. His magnificent run last year will take some beating by him and the rest. But Chris Thompson will feel he's got a point to prove here. He ran outside 65 minutes at the Great North and then claimed he'd had some injury problems. Jo Pavey in 3rd place in this women's race. And I guess the question for the former European 10,000 metre champion, how long can she keep going at this elite level? 44 years of age. That stride maybe just shortening a fraction. Hasn't been an easy year for Jo, but she's in 3rd in the women's race. And Chris Thompson now with Tsegai Tewelde in 2nd and Callum Hawkins in 3rd. Still very much attached to this trio. But certainly we can say one thing. This is a confident first 5K from Chris Thompson, who, as I said a few minutes or so ago, was disappointed with his 13th place finish at the Great North. He has won the Nottingham Half Marathon this year. But he's a classy athlete, Chris Thompson, and he will relish this battle against the man of the moment as far as British marathon running is concerned, Callum Hawkins. And at last, the very last starters of the half marathon have begun their journey in earnest. And I'm sure they'll get just as much support as the likes of Flomena Daniel and Callum Hawkins. And there is the Kenyan. I was in Paris when she won there at the start of this year. That was an excellent win. Really good performance there. So victorious in 2014 and was 3rd in Paris this year. She's running alongside Derek Ray. And those of you who follow IPC athletics may be familiar with the proud Scot. He's been in PB shape this year, 2:33 for the marathon, and he'll give Flomena Daniel good company. Wow, what about this from Chris Thompson? Suddenly, there is daylight between each of the leading trio. Hawkins only just coming round that corner. Tsegai Tewelde, the expatriated Eritrean, now proudly flying the flag for Scotland and Great Britain, and did so in the Olympic marathon last year, although didn't manage to finish that race. He's just about hanging on to Chris Thompson. But it is the veteran of the trio who's leading at the moment, and Hawkins has some work to do if he is to successfully defend this title. They're asking the questions of this proud Scot, and he surely now has to respond, and respond quickly. Chris Thompson out in front. And this now, perhaps, even though we have less than half an hour on the clock, is an opportunity in the pouring rain for him to pull away in Pollok Park. Callum Hawkins has clearly gone through a bit of a bad patch, and he now has closed the gap on Tsegai Tewelde, who's come back towards him Tewelde, let's not forget, was 5th in the World Juniors over the 1500 back in 2006. So before plying his trade as a marathon runner, he showed real promise on the track. Also now in the early stages of their venture around Pollock Park, Flomena Daniel, Commonwealth Marathon champion, winner of Paris a few years ago, running alongside Derek Ray. Derek Ray, a fine Paralympic athlete, and he'll be keeping Flomena Daniel company. Meanwhile, this is 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th and 9th in the men's race. And just at the back of that group there, Andrew Butchart, well, he's experiencing the full glory of a half marathon. He has been on holiday since his exploits on the track this year, so perhaps a steep learning curve for him. Meanwhile, Chris Thompson, surrounded only by the flora and fauna. He's too far ahead of Tewelde and Callum Hawkins to even hear their footsteps, and this will be good news for the 36-year-old. Derek Ray alongside Flomena Daniel. Ray's PB, incidentally, over the half is just inside 72 minutes, and if he keeps going like this, even though they're only at the 6-mile marker, he could be on line to smash that lifetime best, so they could do each other a favour here. But Chris Thompson now has to start believing, and I'm sure he does, that he could take the notable scalp of Callum Hawkins here, the defending champion. You can see Tewelde with Callum Hawkins just behind him. That is not an unbridgeable gap, but it's obviously a useful advantage. Meanwhile, back in Pollock Park, thousands making their way around this course. And now Callum Hawkins has moved ahead into 2nd place. And maybe these two can work together to try and erode that lead of Chris Thompson. Around about 5 miles to go. They've got to start eating into that lead, surely. A lot can happen in the last 5 of a half marathon. And there's the not insignificant prize of the Scottish half marathon title on the line here. Tewelde and Hawkins going toe-to-toe to be the #1 Scot across the line. Although I'm sure Hawkins at the moment is more concerned about being #1 overall. But there could be a battle within a battle there, should they be together towards the finish. So into Bella Houston Park now. Meanwhile, a little bit further back down the course, still Flomena Daniel and Derek Ray. Derek Ray has been a really good ambassador for IPC Athletics for a long time. And now Chris Thompson, 4 miles away from what would be a significant victory. He won the Great South last year, but I think, bearing in mind the form that Callum Hawkins has displayed this year, this would be an even bigger victory for him. Psychologically as well, just great for him to know that he can still perform at the highest level. Oh, a bit of a slip there from Chris Thompson. Now, it is wet, and being the fabulous season of autumn, there are quite a few leaves around. He did well to stay on his feet there. This is Charlotte Purdue. She's running well here, the Aldershot Farnham District athlete, but she's a long way behind Flomena Daniel. Purdue just missed a medal in the Commonwealths in the searing heat of Delhi back in 2010, but then came a whole succession of injuries, and it's so good to see her back to top form. So the big question here as we watch Hawkins and Tewelde, what is the gap up to Chris Thompson? They did initially look as though they had begun to erode that lead, but as we see here from the lead camera on the motorbike, this is a significant gap. So, around about 20 seconds or so, and that is a very useful advantage for Chris Thompson, but he's got to keep this going because the two men behind him could start working together. Well, talking of working together, Daniel and Ray have never been more than a shoulder width apart throughout this race. Derek Ray, I think, was a sub 3-hour marathon runner before the accident. Suffered nerve damage in his right arm in a motorbike accident, but he's really become comfortable and accustomed to running with that right arm in the sling. Callum Hawkins' face is a picture of concentration. There's a little grimace there. He knows that they have to start doing something, and doing something quickly here, if they're to stand a chance of overhauling Chris Thompson. Because with 2 miles to go, at the moment, they're reliant on Thompson running into a problem. Hawkins is such a great athlete to watch, so aggressive. But he's got his work cut out here. And we should give a little name check to Chunk as he makes his way round the course, but much further behind from Chris Thompson. So they've crossed back over the Clyde on the north side of the river, and now Chris Thompson will surely sense that he can definitely do this. He's worked really hard to build up a sizable lead. Daniel is also in front. Renault has just drifted off the back of this inseparable duo, Derek Ray and Flomena Daniel. And she's a long, long way clear of Charlotte Purdue. Chris Thompson isn't quite so far ahead. But this is now, without doubt, a winning margin. And after succumbing to so many injuries for so many years, it is going to be a great moment for Thompson, running under the McClellan Arch here in Glasgow Green. It's not going to be a personal best, but that doesn't matter. He knew at the Great North Run he underperformed. He said his training had gone well, and he was desperate to show everybody that he still has something to contribute to the sport in Britain and internationally. There's the big famous G that was at the heart of the Glasgow Commonwealth Games action 3 years ago, and Hawkins and Tewelde are going to have a battle right to the end for the Scottish title and the runners-up spot. Hawkins had his great moment in the sunshine here 12 months ago, and it's Chris Thompson now, pumping his fists as he enjoys the last few metres of what has been a fantastic day for him here in rather difficult conditions in Glasgow. He takes the Bank of Scotland Great Scottish Run title in 2017. What a win, and it couldn't have happened to a nicer bloke. That will go some way to making up for all the years he's lost to injury in a long, long, frustrating international career. And what about this battle for the Scottish half marathon title? Tewelde is coming up on the right-hand side of Hawkins. Can the Scottish marathon runner respond? So close, but Hawkins has found something else. Shoulder to shoulder, Hawkins just on the line. Wow. Well, if it's not to be first, you want the next best place, and that's second, and he's done it. Scottish half marathon champion. He's a long way shy of the performance he produced in winning last year, but remember, he will still be feeling that World Championship marathon in his legs, and he's got the Commonwealths coming up in April, so he may well be in a big block of training. Charlotte Purdue, this fabulous junior, who really seems as though she's found her distance and her consistency. She's coming home, or will do, in second place. But Flomena Daniel is going to take the honours in the women's race. Derek Ray just disappearing behind the yellow of the G. He has moved ahead of the woman that he's been pacing. Well, they've been pacing each other all the way round. Ray is trying to break 70 minutes, and he's going to go pretty close. Andrew Bookchart, by the way, just coming through in the centre of our picture, so it's been a steep learning curve and a difficult race for him, but he's waving to the crowd and still looking as though he's enjoying himself. Derek Ray's almost going to catch the British Olympic 5,000 metre runner. So Bookchart coming home with Derek Ray just behind him, and so too Flomena Daniel. The banner goes up to anticipate an emphatic victory for the Kenyan. Just off the podium in London in August, she's back on top here in Glasgow, just as she was 3 years ago over the full marathon distance. Flomena Daniel is the champion in Glasgow here. And a lovely embrace for her and Derek Ray, who, by the way, has smashed his personal best. A really good run from the Kenyan in conditions that she won't be too familiar with.
Very pleased with his performance. Around about 17 minutes on the clock there for the Diamond League athlete, and of course the man.
Great to see her smiling, and I'm sure she'll enjoy her moment on the podium. As too will Charlotte Purdue. She's been on her own, really, for the last 4, 5, 6, 7 miles. She hasn't been able to run consistently with one male athlete, as Czegai did for so much of her circuit round Glasgow. But it is a good performance of Purdue, runner-up and in fine style, and just a few seconds outside 72 minutes. That's a great finish. Confirmation of the victory for Chris Thompson. Callum Hawkins and Tewelde given exactly the same time, but it was Hawkins who got the better of his rival in that sprint for silver. Fionnuala Ross completed the podium. Joe Pavey fading a little bit down to 7th.
I'm very happy to win here today, of which brings my memories back of winning Commonwealth Games in the year 2014.
I got to run with the male athletes as well, which helps a lot. I mean, the weather conditions weren't ideal for personal best conditions, so I just tried to run as strongly as I could and make it a worthwhile run. So I was happy with the second place.
There's still hunger and there's a burning desire in there. I'll keep plugging away, and I said to Callum afterwards, it's an honour to race with these youngsters coming through who are pushing benchmarks back for what I achieved through my career, and it certainly was an adrenaline rush and a privilege to actually beat an athlete of his calibre.
It's really all gearing up for the Commonwealth Games, and it's a bit of a weird period. It's a bit too soon to go on full-on training, but I'll be setting a base just so when it comes to the marathon training I can really push on.
A great celebration of Scottish and British sport and distance running. Chris Thompson, a popular winner, making light of the damp conditions on the streets and in the parks of Glasgow. Next for us is the Simply Health Great South Run. Don't forget, keep up to date on our website, but for now, it's goodbye.